Loubier?
Could be. We say Loubier in French, but Loubier in English sometimes. Loubier, Serge, Serge.
What do you prefer?
I don't mind.
Loubier.
I like the accent that the English-speaking people have when they speak French. I think it's beautiful, so I don't mind the way you use it.
Okay, very good. Serge Loubier is president and CEO of Marquis Book Printing, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, of its kind in Canada. We're in his office in Montreal. Welcome to the Bibliophile.
Welcome. Happy to be there.
Can you tell me a bit about Maurice Marquis?
Oh, Maurice Marquis, the founder, was originally in the newspaper in Montmagny. That's the where everything began for our company.
That's just outside of Quebec City, right?
Yeah, it's about an hour from Quebec on the side of St. Laurent River.
Okay.
And we're still in Montmagny. The head office is still there. Started in 1939 or so. And he was doing some publishing and printing.
Okay.
And at one point during the war, because he started in 1939, he was to distribute some books coming from France, from Fernand Nathan at the time, who used to make some encyclopedia and things like that. So he was receiving it and distributing. But during the war, the books stopped
being shipped.
Stopped being shipped, so he had to find a way. So we went to Europe and bought some rights and founded Marquis Publishing and Printing in the book. He basically bought the rights, started to print the book, and then made a bus that called a bibliobus. Put some shelf in the bus and went from small town to sell the books in front of the church most of the time. And that's how he started. The integrated vertically,
That's right, yeah. So he was producing and selling.
Yeah, producing and selling. And it evolved after the war. It evolved to being a printer for the French and Canadian publisher. From that time all the way to somewhere like 2000, it stayed as it was at the beginning, a book printing plant using the latest technology at the time. I even have a film of that. That's funny. You feel in Cuba because of the old cars, and then he's in the office with a cigar and talking with some publisher. It's fun to see, and you can see the shop. At one point, they sold, after Mr. Marquis, they sold to some other people, and at the end, it ended up being bought by Groupe Scabrini. Groupe Scabrini also bought AGMV, which stands for Atelier Graphique Marc Veilleux, who's my stepfather, that passed away a while ago, and he formed AGMV Marquis, which was the jointion of two plants, one in Cap Saint-Ignace and one in Montmagny. And we came in 2007 as the management buyout. I was at the time taking care of sales. Mm-hmm. Started like at production on a one knife trimmer. Then went at the binder.
You actually worked the trimmer?
Yeah.
That's how you started off?
Yeah. During my study at the university. At that time I was studying French literature. I was on the content. Ended up being on the container after a while. So I started in sales. He said, you're at the university. Maybe you should go see some of the teachers. They might have some book to print. So I started in sales that way. Became a head of sales around 2006. I joined AGMV Marquis because of a transaction. I was working at the time for Veilleux on-demand printing, and they bought us. So it opened a light for me at that time. Okay. Say, I don't have to go knocking on door like I do. I can buy the business and go really faster.
Yeah, much easier way to expand, right?
Yeah, so I thought, hey, that's a thing I should remember. You can always develop 100 clients, but you can also buy 100 at once and make it happen much faster.
So just if we can roll back a bit, what publishers was Maurice dealing with in both in France and in Quebec, and maybe I don't know. There probably wasn't much in the rest of Canada, was there?
Not that much at the time.
No,
not that much.
So
it was
what publishers?
Fides, Boréal, Beauchemin. Some of them are still in business. Some of them have been bought. Like Boréal is still on Rue Saint-Denis.
Yeah.
Still there. I can't remember all the names at that time, but there was quite a few publishers in Quebec. And he specialized in short run because of the market. So sometimes good ideas come from necessity. And he needed to find a way to serve the publishers that were to sell about 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 books. And at the time, they were just buying 5,000 and storing those. It was the good times where you didn't mind to print more because it was really cheap. And then he needed to adapt to the fact that the Quebec market is a market of his own in Canada. So he started to get some equipment for shorter runs.
Yeah.
Which led to being a short run book printer specialist. So at that time, that's the one I remember. There was quite a few, but I was not there. I'm just going from...
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there was less publisher having a stronger impact on the publishing industry at that time.
It was more concentrated then.
Yeah, like Fides was owned by a congregation of really Catholic publishing, and you had the other side where you were doing books that were not in the Catholic range, but more like disruptive.
Yeah.
And you had in the middle a few guys that were doing essay and things like that. And the university presses were big at that time because everything was starting from there. So that's how he built his business. And he was printing also from some of the French publisher, because still today it's about 40% of the market in Quebec comes from outside Quebec and mainly from Europe.
But what about your business coming from France, for example?
At the moment?
Yeah.
We have, I would say roughly 5 million in dollars coming from Europe. And it's growing because they have a tendency to print closer to the reader. And, printing a big quantity, putting in on a boat, send the boat to Quebec, then print and distribute. You send about 3 times what you need. You end up destroying those, you send more. The chain is changing at the moment so that we print what we need, we wait, and then we reprint if we need. Yeah. Instead of having that magic calculation that it's really cheaper to print 5,000.
Yeah.
So I'm going to print 5,000, but in fact you sell 2,000. So the mathematics don't really work.
So there's less risk if they work with you? Is that one of your...
Yeah, but there's less risk because they're going to print less. It's going to boost their cash flow, so they do more titles.
And they're not going to hurt the environment by shipping a bunch of stuff over the Atlantic?
The footprint is a lot better because, of course, you don't destroy books that you took the time to print with paper coming from trees.
Yeah.
And also, you don't have to travel them to a big boat for 5 weeks or 6 weeks with all the trucking and everything that goes with it. So instead, if you print a quantity that is pretty much sold through the retail, and then you wait to see if you're going to have some returns or if you're going to have a reprint, then you're more adapted to the market and you print a lot less. So the footprint becomes a lot better.
So 2006, around there was a management buyout. So you got, there was 2 or 3, 4 of you that...
3.
Okay.
3 guys. Management buyout is basically guys that don't have money that buy something that's worth a lot of money. So you just leverage the company, you put a lot of debt in it, you just work a lot until you have paid that debt. And if you don't succeed, they take everything you have. So it's a big risk, but at the same time, it's the best thing I've done in my life.
Yeah.
So when we bought the company, we had 100 employees and about 17 to 18 million in business. 2 plants in Montmagny. And 2 plants in Montmagny. I say Montmagny, but it was Cap Saint-Ignace and Montmagny.
Okay.
It's a big thing. It's a big difference, even though it's 10 minutes of driving. Because
what do you mean?
But I mean that sometimes, even though you're close, the culture of two plants is really different.
Yeah.
So around 2012, around that, yeah, we decided to put both plants together. And it took about 2 years for the people to just have lunch together. They were talking those guys and those guys. But
Yeah.
I was like, we're all together in the same plant. You
Yeah.
come from that village, they come. But it's been years and years that they were competing against each other. Now that we were putting them together, it was a cultural change. So even though it seems for you, if you drive a car and you pass in front of a printing plant and 10 minutes after you pass in front of another one, it's the same kind of... But in the end, it was not exactly easy to put everybody together.
Yeah, you acquired a number of different companies, and in 2018 you acquired Webcom.
Yeah, last year. It's been a year because the transaction occurred in September. But that was not our biggest deal. Our biggest deal occurred in 2012 when we bought 2 plants of Transcontinental.
Yes.
Louisville-Gagné, that is still open, and Sherbrooke Metrolito, that is transformed into a pre-press house now. So it's the hub of Marquis in Sherbrooke. That's where we receive all the files. But that plant, when we done that deal, it was a big one for us.
Yeah, that, as I understand it, you basically, by doing that, you got access to printing sort of one black and white novels and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they basically backed off and pushed into for color.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Is that agreement still in place or not?
In a way, yes. But I
Okay.
think sometimes they do black and sometimes we do color. But it is still in place that they don't print black and white book. In fact, Transcontinental has a subsidiary called Chenelière, which is a major, we say that, pedagogical...
Pedagogical?
Yeah, but that's one of the major one in Quebec, and we're still printing their book. Or they're not even printing their own book. So that's how they got out of it, the mono and 2-color printing.
Okay.
So that segment we still print for them, and we had to close Metrolito because it was pretty similar to the one we had in Montmagny. So we kind of took Metrolito, Cap Saint-Ignace and Montmagny and put them into one plant in a new building in the industrial park of Montmagny. Because the other plant, the old one, was in the middle of the town. And now we were disturbing the neighbors. When Maurice Marquis was there, it was in the middle of a field. But then everybody built around it, and now they're complaining about the noise. So, as usual, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, that was the biggest one because we were like at 20 million and we bought 37. So it's the big push forward. And
Yeah, what you said was you pushed all the chips in the middle.
yeah, that's it. I went to my father at that time and said, I got the chance to make a deal. I pretty much finished paying for the first one. And now I have the chance to do a second one. Basically, if I was playing poker, I would put all in and say this could be a very good deal for us or a dramatic deal for us. And it's funny what he said to me. He said, when you owe $200,000 to someone, you're in trouble. But if you owe $3 million to someone, they're in trouble.
They really need you.
So
they
you
need
might
you to pay it back.
Yeah,
right?
so you might as well do it. So I said,
Okay.
oh yeah, pa. I thought he was going to say the contrary, but he's the one who pushed me at the end.
So you're a risk taker.
But,
Or do you believe in you're confident in what you're doing, obviously?
At that time, our thinking was we're only doing books. That's what we're good at. And we're going to live or die by the book. So instead of competing against them, if we can buy them and develop ourselves, if the book stays, and that was our thinking at the time, because you have to remember it was the ebook apocalypse.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
we made the deal in the ebook apocalypse with all the trouble that it gave us with the banks, saying, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
So we said the book as an object will transcend technology and will stay. That's our thinking. So that's why we want to do it. And it's a better time to do it because they let go the asset for not much because they don't believe it's going to go through.
Right.
So who's going to be right? At the end, we said to ourselves, we're going to be the last one standing. So there will always be one, and it's going to be us.
Okay.
In fact, now there's more than one. But with the last transaction that we made with Webcom, we have a platform, a Canadian platform that is more established, and we're not the last one standing, but we're by far the biggest one now. So in mono and trade.
Mono meaning one color,
Yeah.
black and white.
Yeah.
And what was the other thing you said?
Trade business is like the novels. That's really our strength and where we have most of our business.
Okay.
We're not the coffee table book printer.
No, that's more
Friesen, for
Friesen
instance.
and Transcontinental.
Transcontinental, that's
Yeah.
it, yeah.
And they do education for color stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we don't do really.
No. Okay. So now you're generating $100 million roughly in revenues a year, and you've got 600 employees.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty accurate. We have a budget of 110 this year, and we're about 588. So it's more accurate to say 100 because 110 is like a wish at the moment. But
Sure. Who are your clients?
mainly publishers.
Like who?
Like you mean the names?
Yeah.
Oh, in the US, we have many publishers that we deal with, like Sterling. People in the manga business. We are really big in manga in the US. We have an expertise for graphic novels. We do a lot of that in the US. We do with Random House. We deal with about 33,000 publishers.
How many?
3,000.
3,000 different publishers.
Yeah, and we do about 500 titles a week.
Holy smoke.
Yeah, I can't believe everybody's reading that. But the numbers
That's-
came out that it's the growing market in the US, the book, so that's not the...
Well, that's what we're all about here at the Bibliophile. I mean, my whole mission is both to explore and understand what's going on with the book, past and present, but
Yeah.
also to promote it. So that's encouraging.
That's
so you
that's
won your
encouraging.
bet then.
We won our bet, yeah. And we didn't know for real. It was not like a bet. It was not like we studied.
It was a gut feel.
Yeah,
That's great.
it's great when it works. Sometimes the best thing you do in life, you just guessed it.
Yeah.
Like the
Well,
place
you
where,
just feel it. You know it, right?
yeah, you know it. But in a way, we were condemned to success with book, or we were nothing. That's what we were doing. So we stick to it instead of trying to diversification. Yeah, that's it. So we could have chosen to diversify, but we thought we stick to it and we go for it.
Okay,
And-
so these publishers in the States,
Yeah,
they benefit from the exchange rate being
at the moment, yeah.
75% or whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? What about tariffs and duties and all that kind of stuff?
Canada, US, they don't have much. It's not a problem for
And
us.
this new NAFTA deal, is that not a big deal?
Not a big deal, but if you look at it, let's say that the government of the USA decide to shut the border to book printing. So we have about $800 million of US book coming in Canada and about 170 coming out. So let's say nothing is moving anymore. I wouldn't have enough capacity to serve the Canadian market.
Right.
So whoever is at the head of the government knows that. So
wait a
he
minute.
has now they're shutting the border on some places, but why they would shut it when they're the big winners?
Yeah.
Yeah, like Mr. Trump wouldn't. There's one thing I think he knows is how to calculate, and if he's blocking China from coming in, it's because the balance is no good for him. And it's the same thing, but not in book, not in printing. It's the contrary.
In other words, what? Canadian publishers are getting their printing done in the States?
Not
Big
so
time?
much. What happened in Canada and didn't happen in Quebec, it's a very different market. The strongest market in Canada is Quebec. And
For you.
for everybody.
What does that mean?
That the publishing market is as big in Quebec than the rest of Canada.
In other words, Quebec publishes more books than the rest of Canada?
That's what I think. And that's probably what
And it's like what?
You know why is that? It's because
1/6 of the population of the total country or something like that?
Yeah, but we're publishing our own things. We're French into a sea of English speaking people, so we have our own things. It would be the same thing in Canada, but they were unable to fight against all those publishers shipping books.
Yeah.
So
we got the same language. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's the problem. So all those publishers that went out, they used to have Random House and Maclean and Stewart. All those guys, they were all installed in Canada with imprints. They're all gone back in the U.S. and they ship the book instead. So the Canadian English-speaking publishers struggle to fight against the big machine of content that is the U.S. And you know how well they are to push their culture through the rest of the world. So it's hard to compete against that. So the books are coming in, going in the libraries. It's full of U.S. book, and there's a side of Canadian books. So at the end, it's harder for a Canadian publisher to fight against the U.S. than us fighting against France.
Yes.
And still, in Quebec, 40% of the books sold come from Europe. We have the same problem. I can just imagine what it is when your neighbor is USA, with all the capacity they have and all the publishers from England that have imprint there. So that's why I'm saying the pure Canadian content, the books that are done by Canadians, you do as much in Quebec than the rest of Canada.
So, who do you do business with in Canada? Like Dundurn and ECW and Biblioasis? Do you do any work with them?
Yeah, I do work with those three. I do book for most of the publishers in Canada, to be honest.
Yeah, okay.
You could name probably 20 in a row and I would know them and I would have printed for them. Okay. It's more like a publisher could have different provider, but he's rarely going to stick only to one. Yeah. And that's why I probably printed books for all the publishers in Canada. Maybe some do really nice coffee table book that they do with Friesen, or some are doing very short run that they do with a local printer. There's a few guys in West. There's must be like 10 printers for book. I don't know. Different size, but at the end of the day, they either came through us at one time and left, or still there for a part of their work. So we do business with most of them, all the universities, all the publisher out west, from the BC publishers, from going all the way in Saskatchewan and Quebec, or even in Newfoundland or everywhere.
Okay. And I've heard that printers serve as the bankers for publishers. Would you say that? How do they pay? Are they good payers, or who's the best payer?
Who's the best payer? I wouldn't say that, because I would have to say who's the worst. The worst one last year was Joe Book, but they went bankrupt, so we lost like $300,000.
What's the name?
Joe Book.
Joe Book?
Yeah, it's a company from Ontario.
Joe Book.
Yeah. Yeah, which we're making some nice book. I don't know if I can see one in the shell, but must have some here. And but it's public when somebody goes bankrupt. But I wouldn't. Recovery is about at 62 days global. I have some people that pay 10 days minus 1%, and I have some people that pay at 90 days. I would say that my industry is a lot worse than many others. We're on the wrong side of, and it's coming from the fact that the industry has a slow travel of money because they print the book. Yes. For me, I buy the paper 1 month before the order.
Where do you buy your paper from?
Mostly in Quebec, from Duntar Mill in Windsor and Alma Resolute Mill and Saint-Jérôme Enviro Mill, because we're a big user of 100% post-consumer paper. We are really pushing that to our client to reduce the footprint. So we buy the paper 1 month in advance, then we print the book, and then they pay us 3 months after.
Well, they got to get all these different people buying their product. It comes in tiny little
for them, then they send the book to distributor.
Yeah.
In Quebec, it's a law, by the way. Only the distributor are allowed to provide the books to the bookstores. It's the chain is protected through law. So they go to a distributor, they send it with a right of return. So the bookstore in 3 months decide he's pushing back the book.
Yeah.
So the real money is coming kind of slow, and sometimes they use those return to erase some of the money they owe to the publisher. So he's getting his money really late. So that's the cycle is long for him. That's why it's long for me. I'm the one paying, but I pay my paper at 10 days, and I get the money 4 months after that, and sometimes even more.
So you're like the bank then, in a way.
I need a bank, that's for sure. I need the bank. I need a bank to back me up.
Yes.
Am I the bank of the publisher? We could say that, but I'm more like the margin of the publisher. If I'm asking them to pay me at 10 days, I might jeopardize their cash flow a lot. That's how I see it. But we don't lose that often. And in general, people, when they print the book, they know they have to pay it. So within the terms.
Okay, so do you actually go out and do a sales pitch to new publishers?
Yeah.
So can you give me a quick pitch? I'm the publisher.
I could. It's been a long time.
Do you bring out what do you do? Do you bring out some examples of other books that you've published?
We do it through a trade show where all the publishers meet for various seminars and things like that. And usually we are allowed to have a table in a hall, and we meet all those guys like the Learneds, university presses, trade publisher. They all have meetings and things like that. So give me some examples of the biggest ones. By the biggest one is American Bookseller Association that does the big show in New York at Jacob Javits, for instance.
It's not Book Expo, is it?
Book Expo, yeah. So, for instance, that's a big one. We go to Frankfurt Book Mess, where it's a zoo over there. It's so big. First time I went there, I had a meeting in all four. So I go to the meeting, and then it was my first time. I didn't know I had to take a train to go to all four.
All four venues?
The all.
Yeah.
The all four, and I was in all one.
Sure, right.
And there was 8 all. So I look at my second meeting. It's impossible. I'm not going to make it. So I go to the third, and then I go to the fifth, and then I learned that make some meeting in the same hall.
Yes.
I felt like it was a book fair of Montreal where you just walk your way there now, and it's a lot bigger.
Okay.
Never thought it was that big. So we go through there. Usually what we are trying to establish with the publisher is making sure we understand his needs.
Right.
So what kind of book do you print? What are usually the runs that you print? Do you need fast turnaround on reprint? What's your normal cycle of buying? When are you buying in the year? Because we have peak period. If he's buying all his book in my peak, I might not be able to help him the way I should. Then we thought about looking at what he's printing. It's more like knowing them than knowing us.
Yeah.
And then I know exactly what kind of machine, because it's really important now. We have a big park of machine, Inkjet, digital, liquid ink, digital, sheet fed offset, half web offset, full web offset, color web. So if I print a book for a client on the machine, he might not be satisfied because he's making books on cell cut, and he wants to know the inside of the cell, and those guys are doctors, so they want to see it carefully. Some other guy don't care, it's pleasing color, they don't want to pay the prime. So you need to understand the need of the client, and then coming back with an offer. This is how we could help you. This is how we could help you reduce your inventory, because the way we do reprint is really fast and cheaper than most of the big guys in the US. So print less and be more reactive. And this is the paper we could use if you want to make a book on like that collection is about the forest. And so you might want to go with a book that respect more the forest than the one you have at the moment. So it's pretty much coming together and making sure that we understand each other, because I can print books, but can I print the book he needs? That's what I have to understand.
But if it's a novel, that's pretty well your bread and butter.
Yeah, and it's pretty straightforward too.
Yeah,
you want newsprint. How long? What's the tail of the book? Is it long or short? If it's a bestseller and it's about a politician that is not going to be re-elected, and you want to make a burner, then you could go for Resolute paper. That is a newsprint. Gets yellow with time. It's just much cheaper paper, but it suits you well. And a lot of the novels are done on those paper.
So you would get a lot of them out at once, and then if they want to do more,
you do more, but also in 2 years that book is looking like crap. If you do it with offset at Windsor, in 10 years it's going to look the same way it looks. So are you going to have a long tail selling it? Is it a title in the backlist that you can sell like forever?
Yeah.
And your inventory, you're sure of selling it, so you can do a bit more and just do it on a acid-free paper.
Yeah.
That's basically what's going to cover. It's going to help you not get too yellow. But if you want a cheap thing going fast out, then
like the Mueller report, maybe you might want to get a lot of those.
Mueller report, cheapest you can go. And actually, we were working with Sterling, which is a subsidiary of Barnes and Nobles that have been bought not so long ago. We were working with them and say, you want to do that amount of book with a really cheap paper, and why are you doing that much? Because it's on the sell fast. And we're talking. He said, "Are you sure that's what you want to do? It's a lot of money." And he sits back and say, "No, I'm not sure actually." And he ended up going digital with a digital book, on a tablet. Yeah, an ebook, sorry. That's the way to say it.
Yeah.
And it went all the way to not doing it because the scope of selling was so short and it was so risky, and you needed to have it in all the retail places so that if you were it with 60% return, you're going to cover the profit you made on 12 other book. And then, so by not doing it was perhaps the best solution for my client, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because you needed to go low. You can't go that low at one point. So it's basically sitting with them and say, it's not feasible. It's not feasible because you're not sure enough to sell it. And if you're not sure enough to sell it, maybe you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't go short run. Yeah. You had to go big. So it was a struggle. And then they're the only one to know at the end. They are the only one to know what's their feeling.
They're the best educated about the risk.
What I can offer them is to diminish the risk and explain to you how I could do it. Like, I'm going to guarantee you 5-day reprint.
Yeah.
So do half of the book and I'll be really reactive on the reprint. And if you don't need the reprint, then you'll like me a lot. Okay. If you get to reprint, of course, on a 10,000 copy run, you'll make a bit less money because making one time 10,000 lowers your unit price. But at the end of the year, all those risks that you didn't took might be more money for you.
Yeah.
And you don't have a building full of inventory that you don't know what to do with it. It's a question of helping them succeed. That's where we're succeeding.
As you say, it's helping them to not to lose money on projects.
Yeah, I want the publishers
helping them to assess their risk, right?
Yeah, and I want the publishers I'm dealing with. I want them to be successful.
Yeah,
that's why when they're successful and they need to reprint fast, I got to be there because they have success. So I got to be part of their success. And if I can help them be more successful or spend less money on inventory, and we'll do it. So that's pretty much the approach we have when we go to a publisher, trying to understand his need and serve him the best way we can.
Well, and with webcom, You've got these next generation inkjet presses for short run printing, right?
Yeah.
So what does that do?
It enabled the possibility of printing, let's say, 4-color book at a really low quantity with a good quality efficiently. So, and we do also case bound at Webcom. So short run 4-color case bound, which put us in a pretty unique spot.
Okay.
And that's the need of the tier 1 publisher that we deal with in Webcom, meaning that those publisher, let's say Oxford University Press, he has to decline his content in the US, in Canada, in Australia, in Malaysia.
He has to what?
I say decline his content, but that's not that's a French word that I'm. He has to put his content in many countries. He's selling books in many countries.
Yes, and so they're different for each country.
Yeah,
right?
Sometimes they're different, but also you just can't print them all in India and send them all around the world. It doesn't make sense. He has to follow also the school period, and it's adapted to some markets, so he has to be reactive. We need 500 books of that medicine book that's worth $400 because the student need it. So he's reactive in many ways like that. So he needs some partner in every country that can print that high quality level book at a short run.
Yeah.
Instead of having the big run and trying to establish where he's going to send it. So those tier 1 like Darren Francis, McGraw, Hill, Walter Kluwer, and LexisNexis, all those big guys, they need us to print for their market, but on a shorter, because they want to go no inventory as much as possible. Okay. So that's where Inkjet come in, because it lowered the cost of starting a job. It's completely different, because on a offset press, you print the first section of, let's say, 32 page, all the way to the last one for a book of 320 page. So you have those 10 sections. You cannot start binding until you have the last one, because the publisher, they usually hate to be missing the last 32 pages of a book. Right. So the workflow is completely different. You have to have all those printed before you bind. On a digital path, it's a book that goes out every time.
Yes.
So you can start binding
right away.
Yeah. So, and you can react pretty fast. So they prefer sometimes to print 5 times the same title during a year instead of printing 1 time.
And it doesn't cost them that much more because you're set up for that.
Yeah. It costs more.
It does.
It does cost more, but they print when it's sold. It's a completely different pattern.
Yeah.
And they establish their selling costs based on the printing cost.
Yeah.
So at the end, they're not losing money necessarily. It's not like the trade where you go $29.99 is the top, $19.99 is better in terms of retail price. So you have to obey to the retail rules. If you are in a more captive market, like scholar publishing and high-end university book, medicine, the STM, those one usually sell for more, but they're really precise. They cost more to produce also. Yeah. So there's more room to cover the fixed costs of production.
For novels, who do you compete with?
I compete with Quad, Donnelly, Friesen. In Quebec, compete with Gauvin, Ignell, Houghton Boston, Warzaw, Versa, CGK.
There's a lot.
Oh yeah, it's still a very fragmented market. There's a lot of room for consolidation in the market. There's been some, but not that much. And in the US, you'll see a lot of deals happening. One of the big deals just went down, Quad and Donnelly. I don't know if it's good for the market or not. I think they'll probably do about the same thing they wanted to do together. They'll just do it separately. So we'll see. But those guys have massive capacity and they dictate the market in a way.
How much bigger are they than you? Then you've got $100 million a year.
I would say Galaxies. But let's
Like
say
what, a billion?
LSC is about in the book. I would say it's about 5 billion.
Oh my
We're about 100 million. So
Wow. So there really are quite a few books still being printed.
oh yes, there must, because I can only imagine we're doing 500 title a week. But we're really specialized in a small run. So you could have a bigger printer than us doing less title. Sometimes in Montmagny, I do about 200-300 books of one during a week. I don't count those in the 500, of course, but I do book of one, like 300 a week. And then my average run in Montmagny to do 150 titles a week is about 600. So it's really short. And it's about 4,000 in Louisville, where we do about 100 book to 75 or 100. And in Toronto, I don't know yet. It's a bit too soon for me to have all those info, but I suspect it's comparable to Montmagny. So the run must be about 800, but they do have also big gears like Timson Press in Toronto that can boost up sometimes we're doing a Bible at 300,000 copies, so it is influencing a lot the average. So if I would take those off, in Montmagny we never do that. It's more like a short run and digital and sheet fed plant.
It sounds to me like there's a lot of room for you to expand and do more business.
We don't really exist in North America in a way.
Because
It's fun that you're interviewing me.
Yeah.
But I never get interviewed because I don't really exist, because I'm a small guy in a sea of big printer. And in the US, I have a small parcel of the market. Like the market for books like I do is about 5 billion. And I do about 40 million. So I don't really exist in the book market. And I'm only talking about the books that concern me, because I don't do the big books in color and like that. So there's probably about another 15 billion that it comes out of the things I'm not touching. So there's a lot of business, and it's a bit growing at the moment, which is good for us, I guess.
What about Random House in Canada? Do you do any work with them?
We do a bit, not much.
Where do they get they get it all done out in the States?
Yeah, they're under contract with Donnelly. Most of the big publishers, they're under contract with Donnelly or Quad. Most of them.
Okay.
That's why they don't want them to go together, because they're probably using one against the other.
Yes.
So if you lose that leverage, maybe they were thinking the price would go up.
But they don't really have an option to go to you because you're too small, or can you could handle a bunch of their work? No.
Yeah.
You could.
Yeah, I could, but that's not my strategic alignment.
You'd be charging them Canadian dollars too.
Yeah, but that's not our strategic alignment, because we prefer to go for mid-size publisher and smaller one. They value our know-how. We cannot take, let's say, Random House, and he's sending us 300 titles. Then I would have to say no to 200 publishers that I'm dealing with for years.
Right.
So they're really big. I'm not that big for them.
No.
If they're spending 100 million a year, and I'm 100 million a year, if they want to send half of their business to me, then it's a commotion in my plans.
But are you cheaper than the big guys or not?
I would say I'm not.
No.
I would say I'm not. In fact, Marquis, what we want to be is the highest priced printer, and to be the one chosen anyway. That's my goal.
Because you're so damn good.
But yeah, that would be my goal. I don't succeed at the moment because I'm not good enough, but that's what we're aiming at.
Now, as far as Canadian goes, it sounds to me like that market is ideal for you, because there are lots of small, medium-sized publishers in Canada.
But that's probably why we kind of started like that. It's because of Canada, and in the US we go for the guys that don't spend over 2 million, 3 million, or we stay under the 5 million. So the big guys that that spend a lot, they get those scale price and everything, and it's really hard to compete with the big guys. They're almost buying the business sometimes, the way I see the numbers. So going that low with such a high quantity of books would affect my bottom line, and wouldn't be a good alignment, because the day they push the button off, then I'll lose 25% of my business. Now I got 3,000 clients.
So it's nicely diversified.
The biggest one is about 4 million.
Yeah.
And after 10, you go down to 1 million. So, I can lose a few, and
It's safer.
For me, it's a lot safer than depending on one of the big guys. And it's when you put your finger in the gears after that, and then you turn around and you have 20 million with the same guy, and suddenly say, you should go 10% lower, otherwise we'll have to leave. Then what do?
Yeah.
You let him leave, or you go 10% lower. And then 3 years after that, he's asking for another 10. And then it's too late. You should have said no to the beginning. Now you're stuck with it.
So you're going after $2 to $5 million clients in the States?
Yeah, or even lesser than that. The client that gives us $100,000, he's working well. We're established with him. They're fun to work with. Why not? Yeah. I don't mind.
You work with Vehicle here in Montreal.
Yeah, Mr. Simon. Yeah, it's fun to work with Simon. Why would I say no to somebody that is smaller than one of the big guys? He's actually a good client. We work together for long.
Great books too.
Yeah, so
and important books too.
Yeah, it's perfect for us. There's no client that are too small. They're just not adapted to what we can do. Sometimes they don't see the value of working with us. They prefer to work with their guy that they know. Some of them, they don't care about quality, so we cannot improve quality for them. They don't care, so they only care about price. So there's always someone cheaper than me.
Yeah.
If it's not here, it's in the US or in China, Malaysia, Spain at the moment. There'll always be somebody cheaper, but somebody that can deliver on time, good books, that can work with you to make them better, then...
really good quality books.
Yeah.
Good printing, good...
the printing, like what we do in the manga business. We have Timsons that are pretty recent, which are web press, but we print...
what are you saying? That's a type of equipment you have?
Yeah, Timson presses.
Okay, yeah.
Best press to make books in the world. Unfortunately, they don't do them anymore, but they're the best one.
Where are they made?
They were made in England.
Is that right? Eh?
Yeah.
And they just closed up?
Yeah, they went all the way digital. They spent a bunch of money trying to get digital heads into offset presses, and they basically too bad, because they were making very good equipment, but also the printing industry using those big webs has suffered a lot. Now we're seeing some growth, but it's growth that is not going to get us where we were 10 years ago, unless there's a lot of growth in the newspaper. They're all pretty much out of the market now, so all those big builder of press rely on that big industry that was newspaper. So
and they're really tanked.
They were doing book press on the side, but the big thing was printing newspaper all around the world, and suddenly it's collapsing, and like nobody wants to buy a press to print newspaper at the moment. They use the old ones. So, and those press are very good. We print with a better line screen than most of the industry, so their aftones look better. So that's why they come to us. It's the quality, and also the fact that you can deliver on time.
Because you've got a Timson, people come to you.
Yeah, people know about those press, but also it's more like when they see the book, they're just like, wow, it's different from the guy I have. It's more crisp, the image are better.
Yeah.
How come? We're using a press that is better quality, and we're using a line screen that is more sharp, and we have special readings on the press that calculate the amount of ink, and even the file coming from the client is pushed into the press to adjust the press. So we have the latest technology available, and we spend a lot of money on CapEx, so they can benefit from that.
On what?
capital expenditure.
Okay.
It's,
Yeah. Sorry.
So,
it's just too much of a business term for me.
yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, so
I became a businessman. I was a printer once.
Timpson, any other names that are really, really good printers or printing machines?
Yeah, the Heidelberg sheet fed that we have in Montmagny. I think they're the best sheet fed in the world too. The HP Inkjet printer that we have in Toronto are probably the best one. But we also have a Fuji Inkjet printer in Montmagny that are very efficient. Mm-hmm. But for offset, we rely on Heidelberg and Timpson, which are names that...
Like they're the best.
That's my point of view. Somebody could say that a Mitsubishi is better, but from my point of view, it's the best press available on the market.
Okay. Just finally winding down here, what about your story? Where were you born?
Montreal, on Boulevard Rollin. Okay. You remember, I was 1 year old. I've been deported by the army because they found one of the ministers that the FLQ killed just near my kindergarten. So I'm born in Montreal, and my parents are from Beauce region.
But wait a sec, they killed Laporte, wasn't it? So what happened there? You were born right around that time?
I was born, I was at the kindergarten, and the police found in the trunk of a car near the kindergarten.
Near your kindergarten.
So the army took everybody out of that sector and put me like in a house in Westmount. And then my parents, when they came to the kindergarten, where's my kid? I was like deported at one in the north of Montreal.
Okay.
And pretty much stayed around Montreal all my life. Studied at Quebec University. And during my study, I started working for Marc Veilleux at his printing plant.
What was that called?
Veilleux on-demand printing. I ended up marrying his daughter, Josie. No, but it's at that time it happened after.
Okay.
And worked on the one-knife trimmer while I was at the university, and then worked a bit on the binder, and after that was head of production in the plant.
This was after you graduated, or?
No, when I graduated, they put me at sales. I remember. 1994.
Started selling to universities?
Yeah. Back to Université du Québec. I knew the guys there, so I said, oh, no, next book, I could print it. And then I saw, oh, it's a publisher that printed. So I went to the publisher and established my selling like that. And at that time, I was thinking to myself, if I can reach 1 million in sales, I'll be it. I'll be the one. And now I got a business that if I don't do 1 million a week, it's really weak. But at that time, that's what I wanted to aim at. And I got it. At one point, that was at 1 million. Then I've been bought by Scabrini Group. They bought Veilleux on-demand printing, as I was saying before. And they came in and said, oh, we're already covering that client, that one. So I lost all of my clients. And I had to develop, and I looked at the market. I said, what am I going to develop? And I started developing outside Quebec. So for 3, 4, 5 years, developed in Ontario, BC, Saskatchewan.
So what do you do, fly all over the country?
I was driving a lot because I was traveling cheap.
Sure.
And I was flying in BC. And established all my clients, so I've developed those. So these.
And who would those clients be, for example?
Thistledown Press in Saskatchewan.
Oh, yes.
Jackie Forey at the time. Ronsdale Press with Ron Hatch. Ecstasis Press with Carl Seidler in BC.
Talon, he was with Talon.
Talon, yeah, Talon. What do I say? I mixed them up.
You didn't say Talon.
Ecstasis was Richard Olafson, and Talon was Carl Seidler. You're right. He was working with his wife.
Yeah.
Arsenal Pulp, Ryan Lamb. I had some client at Dudner, and at the time it was Ken Lang, I believe, and I had Broadview Press with.
They're in Calgary, right? Or Peterborough?
They're in Calgary, Peterborough.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they're at both places because the owner is now in Calgary.
Yeah.
Calgary University Press. It was Walter Hildebrandt at the time that was there.
UBC? Did you go to UBC?
Not much, because they were under contract with Friesen. They go on tender, but they always take Friesen. So.
That's interesting.
I think they are having a hard time finding people quoting now.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows that they just do that for...
It's a waste of time.
Yeah, most of the time. Okay. And I think it changed now. But at the time, it was really a Friesen account.
And then there's Regina Press. Did you go to the university there?
Yeah, the University of Regina. We get some jobs from them too. At the time, that was not my client.
Okay.
I had a bit of client in Quebec, and mostly outside Quebec. ECW, Jack David. I was working with him. Was a funny guy to work with.
Yeah.
And
he's still a funny guy.
He's still a funny guy, maybe. Yeah, didn't change. And I don't know. I couldn't name some for quite a while. I remember them. We're still doing business with most of them, actually.
I see.
So what they saw at the time, my boss said, "Hey, you went from 0 and you're back to $1 million and now 2 million. So you're good at development. You'll be ahead of the development. So you'll be a VP of development."
Yeah.
And after that, it became VP of sales. And when the management buyout came in, that was my only chance to be named president, buying the company. So nobody would have named me president, but if I was buying the company, maybe it could have happened. So, and my 2 associates thought that since I was in sales, being in front of a client, being the president meant something more than sitting in an office. So that's why I got the title at the time. I got the title first, and then I got the job. Okay. I remember at the time I said to my father, "I'm president, and I don't know what to do." Yeah. I felt like George in Seinfeld when he's working for Penske. I don't know. He's just sharpening pencil all day. What's the job? So, take your time, look at everything. It will come, and it catch up to me. What was the job after a while? But at the beginning, I was like, okay. I knew my way at sales. Yeah. Now I'm president. I gave all of my client because I thought it was a bit awkward to have your client when you're president. Everybody's going to say he's passing his client. So I pretty much gave them to all the salespeople. Yeah. And now I started thinking, what could I do to develop the business? And it came back to the fact that I was bought a few years before, and I said, I could buy another company. Yeah. So we bought a few company.
And so you must have a good bank then. You must like your bank manager.
I think they like us.
They believe in you.
They believe in us, but also they're making tons of money with us because it's risk capital. So they made a lot of money with us. And actually, on the structure of Marquis, when we did the management buyout, at that time it was Risk Capital Desjardins came in as shareholders. They're still shareholders of Marquis.
How much do they own?
About 40.
40%?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we have 20, 60. It's about that. Yeah. I think they are a bit lower now, but they're still important shareholders. Yeah. And we've been like that since the beginning. It's always nice to have a billionaire as a partner. Yeah, because they have a lot of money when it's time to do a deal. Now we've done a few with a bit of success, so we'll lend you the money. They make money lending money. Yes. If they don't lend money, they don't make money. So they look at the project, if it makes sense, it's an easy access to capital. But easy. It's never that easy. You have to prove that it's going to be a good deal and everything, but at the end, it's easier than if you start from scratch, which we were when we started. We were the young guns. Everybody wanted to help us. Now we're the big guys now.
What did your father do?
He's accountant, chartered accountant, for all his life. He's just retired now.
So he wasn't in sales?
No, wasn't in sales. Was in numbers.
And your mother?
My mother, she used to work at the postal office when you were still giving the envelope in the end of the people. So she worked a pretty long time there. And after that, she worked in an office in the window maker called Novatech. She used to work as a secretary there for, 10 years. Mm-hmm. She's retired too now.
So where do you get your energy and personality from?
I guess from my parents, probably. That's the only place it could come from. But I think you built your own, in a way. Because sometimes people say that I look like my father, but they rarely say that I got the same personality. Unless my wife sometimes say that to me when she wants to be mean. But otherwise, it's not happening often. I built myself by being curious. I think in business it's important to be curious.
In my business, it's essential.
Yeah, but in most of the business, it's really critical in your business, because otherwise, I don't know what the...
It's not going to be interesting.
Yeah, I doubt it would be. In our business, it's important to be curious. Me, I'm a machine addict. I like machines. I like to understand how they work. And it's really important to be curious about machine when you're in the printing industry, because it's still a machine war in a way. So if you
it's like Formula One. If you've got the best car,
yeah, and if you buy the wrong one, you need to race all year with the wrong one because you bought it.
Yeah.
So that's you gotta make sure you do buy the right one, or that you don't buy the worst one. That's for sure. You can't always buy the best one, because sometimes you don't even know it exists when it evolves pretty fast. But if you buy the worst one, then it's really hard to be successful in a market like that. And it's painful at the moment because the new presses, they're digital presses, so they amortize on a 5-year period. Before that, I was buying offset press that were amortizing in 10 years. So 5 year, when you buy something that's worth 3 million, you better get your numbers straight, because the amortization takes a lot out of your numbers. Yeah. So it's that's why I say it's a machine war in a way. You got to make sure you do the right thing, and it's capital intensive to print. Buy huge machine that cost a lot of money. And even when you do a deal, like we bought a press from Edwards Malloy because they collapsed in the US, and we bought a pretty good Timson ZMR, the Zero Make Midi Timson, pretty rare. We didn't pay much for it because it's really a press that worth about 7 to 8 million, and we paid like 500. But then you have to install it properly, so it cost us.
And maintain it too. You have to.
Yeah, but it cost us 500 to install it properly,
right.
Because you got to do the concrete base, you got to change all the wires because the press have been running, and you want to make sure. So we change all the electronic and the computers in it, so 200 just that, because we want the new generation. We don't want to be out of support 1 year after installation. So knowing all that and doing all that is a key to success, because we've done it a lot in the past. But it's not only the machine you buy. How are you going to install it? Who are you going to put on the press? Have you bought something that your people really don't know, and you have to start from scratch? Then if you buy a used press, you don't get the support of the company. So if you want to buy something new for a new product, you better to buy brand new, coming with a team that's going to show you. If you know your way in Heidelberg presses like we do, you can buy a pretty good used one and pay half of the price. Yeah. So it's juggling with all this that probably makes a success at the end, and errors are really costly. That's...
Speaking of success, final question: where you're at 100 million, 600 employees, how big is your ambition? Are you happy now? Where do you want to go in the next 5 years?
That's a good question. We're making a strategic workshop. It's going to take us 6 months, a lot of meetings. I'll know better in 6 months. I could answer that, but if I
as
go
far
back,
as your ambition goes,
in the book industry, from all my readings, there was something really important to have that is called the critical mass. The critical mass in the printing industry in North America is 100 million. Then you have access to a contract with the supplier that are better. You can buy a machine that produces 20 million because you have 100. You don't buy a machine that produces 20 if you have 10. But that machine that produces 20 is really efficient. So then you can transfer the business from a less efficient to a more efficient. And you're on the radar a bit more. So supplier come to you and client come to you. So we wanted to reach that critical mass. That's why we done the webcam deal. And we wanted also to get closer to the tier one and have access to a strong platform in Inkjet. So we have that. Now it's not a question of going to 200. Between 100 and 200, there's no strategic. There's nothing really strategic there.
You've hit the critical mass.
Yeah, I fit the critical mass. And there's other thing that can give, this is giving value to our company to be over 100. The other thing that gives value is to be over 12% of EBITDA. We're working on it. We're not there yet. We were at 11 before buying Webcam. Webcam took us down. Now we're going to gain back. So we want to be over 12% EBITDA. Much more important for me than the amount of business at the end of the year. It's the bottom line that gives me the money to reinvest in a platform that is up to date. So it's more important for me at the moment to generate good EBITDA with my company than to generate the top line. It's non-strategic to be at 150.
Yeah.
I want to be a solid player. I want to invest into case-bound rigid binding because there's a shortage in the US, and I truly believe that the book object is a nicer object when it's a rigid binding, and I think it's going to go through. If it becomes like the book you're writing at the moment, you took a case bound because it looks better and the object looks better. So in a way, we want to get into that part of the industry, print more color sheet fed because it's high quality. So high quality case bound.
You don't do many case bound novels then?
When we bought Webcam, we also bought a company called York Book Binding that is specialist in case bound, and we integrated into the Webcam facility. So we just started in case bound, and we want to improve that. So that's where we want to go. We want to be, as I said earlier, we want to be the highest price and be full of people that are happy to pay for it because they get it on time, because it's looking good, because they know they have a lunch or an event, they'll have the book. And they'll know that if they're successful, we'll be reactive. So at the end of the day, they don't care to pay a bit more because they spend less.
Yeah.
In fact.
In the long run.
Yeah, so that's not the same thing I would have said before buying Webcam, but now that it's done and we have that critical mass, I'm like 200 or 100, it's not the big thing. It's more like if I want to have better places for my employee, nicer place to work in.
More money for your employees?
More money for my employees. They take care of it. They usually ask. But it's more money, but it's the environment also.
Yeah.
If you're in a successful company, you have more chances that they pay you right.
Yeah.
Well, of course. You could say that Amazon is not doing that, but in fact, maybe they do. I don't know it. People will complain against a company that is that big.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, there's a lot of millionaires that work at Amazon too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's easier to have good people if you have a nice environment and you pay them well. So you always have good surprises and bad surprises, but usually when you pay well, you get good people. They talk to each other.
So that seems to me that's what makes you happy, but maybe you could answer the question. What makes you happy?
What makes me happy is to think that 500 family can earn a living because we had some good ideas and we developed a company that was not existing at that size. So that pretty much what makes me happy, and that's what worry me enough so that I make sure that they have a job to all the way to the end of their career. That's what I would be proud of. One of the guys at the Christmas party, I gave him a watch because it was 25th year, and that guy was younger than me. And I said, "When did you start?" He said, "I started at 16." So now it's been 25 years, and I think you're going to retire in our company. He earns about $30 an hour as a pressman. Decent job. You do some overtime. I say, I'm happy. I want to retire with the company. He's working 3 days. So they don't show up to the office that much, working 12 hours. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's long, 12 hours. But once you tried it, you work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then you're off until the next Monday. I think it's a good job. He's being paid for. We're in region or plant or not, so probably get a piece of land that he can work on and So that's what makes me happy, that people rely on our company to get their kids to school and to, it's fun. At the end of the day, I'm happy when you do nice book, when we have good profit, but what really makes me happy is more like the people being happy working for us and being in a good environment. Even though we're trying, they're not always happy, but that's what makes me happy.
Well, I'm very happy to have met you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks to you. You seem like a well-experienced interviewer. I never felt I was actually being interviewed.
Good. I've been speaking with Serge Loubier, who is the president and CEO of Marquis Book Printing, based in Quebec, with plants in different parts of Quebec, but we're actually in their offices in Montreal, Canada. Thanks again.
Thank you.